What is up, guys? Today I bring you round 3 of Torneio de Cucujões. And yeah, this round was very important for me. I got paired up against a 1136 rated player. And yeah, he was a kid, very underrated, as you're gonna see by this game. And yeah, after round 2, which was my toughest loss in this journey so far mentally, I really wanted to come back strong and with a win. And knowing that I was gonna play a kid that's probably like well prepared and knows the main lines, I decided to throw a curveball and play knight f3, which I rarely do. And after d5, d4, knight f6, I went for g3, sort of a Catalan type of structure without playing c4 immediately, so it's a little bit weird. But yeah, I decided to do this, and my plan was to just grind down a like small positional advantage, and with time getting a winning game and converting. That was my idea. I wanted really a slow game. After g3, my opponent surprised me with bishop g4, which I rarely see in this type of lines, but it makes sense. Develop the bishop outside the pawn chain before playing e6. I play bishop g2, he plays e6, castles, bishop d6, and c4. So I strike in the center. My opponent takes, which is definitely a mistake, because he's not gonna keep this pawn, and it just allows me to develop with tempo. And after knight bd2, yeah, you can't really get a hold of this pawn. If you try to hold on to this pawn with something like b5, you're already running into a lot of troubles after a4. This is like a pretty thematic type of idea in these structures. And here you have a takes b5, for example, c takes b5, and already knight e5 with an attack on the rook. And yeah, you have to probably take the knight here, and after d takes e5, the rook is still hanging, although you have knight d5. But yeah, this gets very, very messy after something like h3, bishop h5, and yeah, knight e4 here, threatening knight d6. This with b3 coming, even though black is up a pawn, there's a lot of pressure in his position. Is way underdeveloped, and yeah, I would definitely take white any day of the week here in this position. But yeah, my opponent after knight bd2 castled, which I think it's the correct decision to make. Just put your king to safety, develop your pieces, and go on, and just let the pawn go. After castles here and knight takes c4, my opponent played knight c6, and here there's already an important decision to make. What would you do with white in order to keep the advantage? Here the computer already says 1 plus 1.2 plus 1.2 for white, but how do you develop the rest of your pieces in your game? Here I thought the first thing that comes to mind, which is the most natural move, would be to take on d6 and gain the bishop pair. But I was trying to look for something else. Of course, in my position, this bishop here on c1, it's the last minor piece that needs to be developed. I thought about bishop g5, but here bishop g5 doesn't really do much after h6. You can't really drop back to h4, and if you go bishop g5 and your opponent challenges you with h6, normally you want to take on f6. You're not going to waste time going back to d2 or something like that. It doesn't really make sense in this position. So I didn't like bishop g5. And also thought about b3 here. But for some reason, I also didn't really like b3. And I ended up playing knight takes d6, but here the engine says that knight e5 is very strong with a similar idea. With knight e5, I'm threatening to gain the bishop pair this way, and also just take on c6 maybe and win a pawn. After knight takes on c6, b takes on c6, and bishop takes on c6, just a clean pawn up. And here the my opponent would have to really take on e5, which is the best move. He can't really keep the bishop pair with knight takes on e5, because after d takes on e5, there's a fork in these two pieces. The knight is protecting this pawn on e5, which is a very important detail. So yeah, the position would look something like bishop takes on e5, knight takes on e5, knight takes on e5, d takes on e5, and after, let's say, exchange of queens, here my opponent would have to play knight d5. If he tried to take this pawn, attacking the rook, rook d2 just wins a piece, because now both pieces are attacked and there's no way to keep them both alive. So yeah, after something like rook takes on d1, knight d5 would be the way to go. But yeah, the computer here just says that white is much better with a bishop pair and just kicking this bishop away with f3 and playing something like knight f2, king f2, excuse me. But of course I didn't see any of this. Knight takes on d6, which is a big error that just loses all the advantage that I had. And after c takes on d6, which is very nice, capturing with the pawn towards the center, strengthening his center and also creating an open file for his rook that he can use later on. Here I decided to just play b3, develop my bishop on b2. My opponent plays rook c8, bishop b2, and here d5. Didn't do this. I didn't play knight e5, which probably is the best try. I decided to play h3, and after bishop on h5, g4, bishop on g6, and knight h4. So my idea was to, okay, let's play a middle game where I have bishop, the double bishops against the double knights, and see if I can actually open the position to my advantage. Here my opponent plays b5, which is a very bad move in my opinion. Although we have played a lot of inaccuracy symbol, but I thought that this really didn't make sense. Like b5 just doesn't really accomplish nothing for my opponent and just creates a weakness on b5 and also a weak square on c5, and this knight already has lost some protection. And yeah, I just took the bishop. Here my opponent plays f takes on g6, which is also a mistake. It's kind of a mistake, but I understand what he tried to do. He tried to take with the f pawn to open his rook, but the problem with this is that it always leaves this e6 pawn weak, and I can exploit that in the future. But yeah, here I play queen d3, so a nice move, targeting b5. And after queen b6, I play a3. I didn't want to deal with any knight b4s, so I just played a3. Nice prophylactic move. And my opponent played b4, which in the game I thought it was a quite interesting move, a nice move, and kind of left me wondering. I probably have to push the pawn with a4, which the computer doesn't really like. The computer just wanted me to develop with the rook fc1 and not really care about this. Seems more natural. And here I was expecting knight a5, and yeah, this move was kind of annoying. Although this knight is very misplaced on a5, he's doing something here. He's pressuring b3 and kind of makes my queen have to stay here protecting and babysitting this pawn on b3. So I thought that this was probably a nice and logical continuation for him to create some unpleasant position for me. But my opponent played a5, which, yeah, definitely a5 I didn't really understand at all. But yeah, he just played a5. I played a rook ac1. My opponent played rook c7, and here I started smelling something in the position. I started smelling this b5 square immediately after he played rook c7, and I was really trying to calculate queen b5, which at first sight, queen b5 just looks a little bit weird. Why are you allowing this trade and doubling your pawns? Like, what? But here you already noticed that he can't really take on b5 because this knight has to move, and after this knight moves, this rook is hanging. So that doesn't work for blacks, so he can't really touch my queen on b5. Okay, that's pretty cool. He can touch my queen on b5, but what does that queen on b5 actually accomplish? And yeah, I was trying to, I don't know, let's say this queen is hanging, So I thought about something like rook b8. Actually, I thought about rook b8 made sense, and I couldn't really quite see how I would keep putting pressure, because now he's actually threatening to take my queen on b6, because let's say I do a random king h2 move. Now he takes my queen on b5 and then takes the pawn with the rook, so he's just better up a pawn. So yeah, I saw this position with rook fb8, and I didn't really know how to continue for white here, so I didn't really went for this. But this is actually the best continuation according to the computer. Here the computer just wants me to take on b6, trade this way, and play g5, knight e8, and rook c5. Yeah, I didn't really see this variation, honestly. So I didn't go for queen b5. I went for the more natural rook c2, and after just both of us doubling on the c file, it's still a game. It's pretty much equal. Here my opponent plays knight e8, which is a big blunder. And I felt like this move had to be incorrect. This is the type of move that I do a lot in my own games. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say what is black really doing here. How is he gonna put more pressure in my position? And yeah, you look at this knight here on f6, and it's not really doing much. I mean, it's okay, eyeing e4, but this square is protected twice by me. So yeah, it feels like this knight has to be rerouted somewhere better, but 98 is too slow. With 98, I don't know, maybe my opponent wanted to go into d6, although it's kind of questionable what the knight is doing on d6 compared to f6. Pretty much almost the same thing. And here, I just I didn't see the best continuation here. The computer is kind of ridiculous, saying that rook c5 is +2. I mean, not gonna try to figure out this now, because it just looks like a weird move. What I played is not that good, but it's still nice. It actually makes sense for me during the game. I have these bishops which are kind of locked behind all these pawns, and so I need to open things up, and I did open things up with e4, which I felt like it was a nice practical move for me. Here my opponent plays another blunder here with knight f6. It's kind of hard to say what really is the way to punish my mistake on e4. There was only one move to punish my mistake, which was knight e7. I guess just trying to trade everything and alleviate the pressure, and if I take on d5, maybe take back with the knight, something like that. But yeah, my opponent here kind of went back to f6 with the idea probably of protecting d5, because I was actually threatening to take twice on d5. But here, I mean, it just gave me two tempos, and you know that there's something here that kind of has to be crushing for white, because my opponent just gave me two free moves, and that doesn't work, right? So here I want you guys to pause the video and try to find a combination for white that pretty much wins the game on the spot. If you want, you can also write down in the comment section down below what you calculated here. 85% of you guys that watch my videos aren't subscribed. If you enjoyed the videos, I would highly appreciate if you could hit that subscribe button. Let's get back into the video. And yeah, here there's two ways to do it, or maybe three, but two of the best ways are queen b5, which I didn't really see during the game. I guess the point is the same of before. We are attacking the knight 3 times here, and also attacking the queen. So let's say my opponent plays rook b8. Well, that really doesn't look like it's working. I mean, we can play rook takes on c6. And actually kind of changed the order of the things. I played first e takes on d5, which is slightly worse, but it's kind of hard to spot why it's worse. Here, like, my opponent just played the natural knight takes on d5 in order to not lose material, but here comes bishop takes on d5, and after e takes on d5, now I played queen b5, which is an excellent move, and yeah, just kind of wins the game on the spot out of nowhere. My opponent was really shocked when he saw this. The point is the same that we saw before. Pretty much this queen is attacking this queen and this knight, and yeah, black has to move his queen somehow or take on b5 here. The best continuation is really to take on b5 and just part away with this knight with something like queen f8. But come on, guys, like, are we really trying to argue that black can hold this? Like, come on. So yeah, here my opponent tried rook b8, which fails to queen takes on d5 with check, and after king f8, rook takes on c6 just simply wins a piece and a pawn. And here my opponent resigned the game. Was very happy with this win, and yeah, it was a nice solid game where I did some questionable decisions on the early middle game. I ended up slowly improving my position, and I was able to find this nice tactic at the end, and I was proud. Coming back from that loss was very important, and yeah, shout out to my opponent. I think he played way better than 1100, and yeah, let's see how I do in the next round. Thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.